One of the more complex ideas that I wanted to discuss with my viewers is the fact that as a child, I personally was isolated a lot as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old boy, and even 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I had very few friends to talk to, and over entire summers when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I remember I was alone in the house and my mom would go off to work and be gone for the entire day. And I was left to my own to process my own thoughts and to be completely by myself. And looking back at it, that was childhood abuse because it was isolation. What I didn't realize at the time, no matter how painful it was to be isolated from people and to have that sense of abandonment from my own mother, repeatedly being abandoned by her. Without a babysitter, yes, without a babysitter, DCF would have been all over that like white on rice. Was that mental conditioning that I had experienced as a young boy was incredibly important for me now as a theory developer and as a man who's really coming to terms with his childhood and what has happened to me. And what better way to show how different I am compared to what a lot of people are used to, I guess you could say, when they always have somebody around them that can talk to them and they can relay their thoughts to and they can communicate with, are people who are inside of colleges and universities and large groups of people. In a way, the abuse I suffered as a child of being abandoned, if you will, repeatedly, without anybody watching me, was a psychological defense that I had built up against a very powerful problem in current science. And that problem is called groupthink. I'm going to go ahead and read some of this for you. Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. Group members try to minimize conflicts and reach a consensus decision without critical evaluation of alternative viewpoints, by actively suppressing dissenting viewpoints and by isolating themselves from outside influences. In other words, you have a group of people who all believe in general relativity, it's all right, it's 100% correct, and groupthink makes it to where nobody's allowed to critically evaluate the fact that general relativity is actually pseudoscience. So they breed the pseudoscience inside of these little groups, and you can't have access into that group unless you also believe in the pseudoscience of general relativity. And the outgroups are actively suppressed. The dissenters are actively depressed, and this is the way it's been for over 100 years now. Continuing on. Loyalty to the group requires individuals to avoid raising controversial issues or alternative solutions. And alternative solutions applies directly to my theory of stellar metamorphosis. Instead of having the nebular hypothesis creating things such as planets, the planet is only the ancient star, it's the evolving star. But that alternative solution will not be accepted because of how irrational groupthink really is. There is a loss of individual creativity inside of groupthink, a loss of uniqueness and independent thinking. That's a no-brainer. They don't want you to think on your own. They want everything to be the way they tell it is, the way they tell it is. It's the same mentality as when I was in the Marine Corps and I looked up at my lieutenants and captains and I thought to myself, these guys are idiots. Here I am, a lance corporal or a corporal without a solid college, education, looking at them thinking, why? How the hell did these people become in charge of me? These people are absolute idiots. But it wasn't that they were idiots. It was that they weren't allowed to be unique and have creative solving ability, because they would get hammered by their higher ups, their majors and lieutenant colonels and whatnot. So it was a big ladder type, shit goes downhill kind of number in the Marine Corps. And that kind of mentality is mirrored quite exquisitely inside of the scientific establishment. The dysfunctional group dynamics of the in-group, the scientific establishment in this case, produces an illusion of invulnerability. They think they're invincible, that they cannot be beat because there's so many of them that believe in this little narrow-minded thing, and they all believe in each other, and it's just a mess. It's basically an inflated certainty that the right decision has been made because of so many people that believe in that same thing. Thus, the in-group significantly overrates its own abilities in decision-making and significantly underrates the abilities of its opponents, the out-group, me and other dissidents like myself. Furthermore, groupthink can produce dehumanizing actions against the out-group, such as name-calling, ridicule, blacklisting from academic journals, from peer-reviewing your papers out of journals, academic journals, because they don't like you, or you present ideas which conflict with the in-group. It's just a huge mess. And for those people who are paying attention, they should know that peer review is not to make sure it's a quality stamp. No, peer review is to protect the careers of those who are inside of the establishment. Peer review is the big red stamp of approval to where they can protect their own careers. It has nothing to do with quality check, as if, there's chickens in the factory and you quality check the chickens to make sure they're good. No. Peer review is a latent career protection type of process. It has nothing to do with the quality of the work or whether the work is reasonable. Antecedent factors such as group cohesiveness, faulty group structure, and situational context, as in community panic, play into the likelihood of whether or not groupthink will impact the decision-making process. In other words, you have cohesiveness inside the group, and if the group starts panicking, they all believe in one little itty-bitty thing, and then they go for that one thing as if they're a beehive. They all attack one single thing. I have experience with that in online forums such as International Skeptics Forum and Rational Skeptics Forum, where I would present this idea and they would attack me as if they were just this giant beehive. They needed to protect their group cohesiveness. They already knew how everything works and they were invulnerable, that nothing could touch them. And groupthink is sometimes stated to occur more broadly within natural groups within the community. For example, to explain the lifelong different mindsets of conservatives versus liberals. That's politics. I'm not interested in that. Or the solitary nature of introverts. I'm not interested in that either. However, this conformity of viewpoints within a group does not mainly involve deliberate group decision making, and is thus perhaps better explained by collective confirmation bias of the individual members of the group. In other words, group think, where everybody thinks the same, is basically based off of everybody wanting confirmation of their own mind from other people. So it compounds that group think, and it makes it feel as if the idea is more and more and more true or factual because other people believe it, because they're looking for their own confirmation bias of what it is they believe to be true. And if somebody else says the same thing, they're like, oh, well, you believe the same thing, so I must be right. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're right or not. You're just looking for people outside of you to confirm what you already believe to be true. So that magnifies the groupthink attitude. Okay. I think that really sums up a lot of this. I'm not going to go too much into George Orwell in 1984 of doublethink. But I think I want to read this out loud to you guys. The main principle of groupthink, which this person offers in the spirit of Parkinson's law, is this: the more amiability and esprit de corps there is among members of policy-making in-group, the greater the danger that independent, critical thinking will be replaced by groupthink, which is likely to result in irrational and dehumanizing actions directed against outgroups. So basically what that means is that if you have an idea, doesn't matter what it is, concerning politics, concerning science, concerning social structures, and the way people want to live their life. If you have a lot of people believing in one thing, and you introduce an idea which they conflict with, chances are you're going to be on the shit end of the stick. You're going to have people wanting to confirm their own reality, and if you don't confirm their reality of the situation, they'll throw ridicule at you, they'll throw hatred at you, hate mail. They'll try their best to just spew venom in your face and pour that haterade. Like, you know, that Taylor Swift song, you know, haters gonna hate. Basically, that's what you're gonna deal with, is a lot of haters. And over time, the more successful you become, the more haters you'll start collecting. And when you do start collecting haters, from my experience, the most you can do is just ignore them. Because you have to understand that their minds aren't fully functional because of the groupthink, of their own willingness to sacrifice rationality for confirmation bias. And to go back to the original talk, the reason why I am in this precarious position of being able to stand up for myself was because I essentially had the training as a young man to not concern myself with what people thought of me. The social cues, I just ignored them. I just ignored a lot of the social cues of what was acceptable, and I just went by the beat of my own drummer. And that's why I am the way I am today. And hopefully, if this helps any younger generations of scientists, or, you know, teenagers, or people who are interested in the world, good on you. I will be making more videos, and I will be explaining a lot more of what's been happening to me, much more in detail. But right now, I think this was the next step. I needed to explain groupthink, and I needed to get out the fact that when I was isolated as a child, I didn't have that ability to be conformed by society, which I think is a blessing in disguise, even though it was genuine child abuse. Okay, today is also February 14th, 2015. I forgot my own tie, so I tied another one. I like this tie. I just went to my dad's house and just raided his tie drawer. But eventually, I actually know how to tie ties now. It's great. Anyways, have a good day.